It's not often that you get to celebrate a movie's 100th anniversary, but today, the German Expressionist classic, The Golem, How He Came Into the World, turns 100. So I just wanted to briefly talk about it to mark the occasion. In 16th century Prague, Rabbi Loew senses that there are troubled times in store for his Jewish people, and soon, the Emperor of Rome declares that all the Jews must leave the city. To help protect them, Rabbi Loew creates a creature out of clay, and due to the constellations, is able to ask for help from Astaroth, the great Duke of Hell, to give life to this creature named the Golem. After being invited to the Rose Festival at the Emperor's Palace, Rabbi Loew sees it as an opportunity to bring the Golem and showcase all of its power. Once there, though, the roof of the palace begins to collapse, so the Golem uses its strength to hold it up and save everybody inside. The Emperor, very thankful, apologizes to Loew and allows him and his people to stay in the city. Now, even though the Golem did its job, it soon starts to act out, and Loew realizes that because he asked Astaroth for help to bring it to life, Astaroth can now possess the Golem and uses him to carry out his malicious deeds. The Golem of Prague is real folklore. It takes elements from real Jewish history, just like Rabbi Loew. Rabbi Loew was a real person, Judah Loew ben Bezalel, who was a scholar and a philosopher, and even studied Jewish mysticism, which is probably what helped cement him as a legend. During the scenes in the festival, he uses his powers to kind of illustrate or showcase the history of the Jewish people to help educate the emperor and his guests, and in turn help educate us, the audience. There's also a lot of talk of constellations and the meanings behind them, as well as a little lesson in demonology. Just like in folklore, there is a moral here. The Golem represents power, and even though Loew's intent was to protect his people, once they're safe, he kind of uses the Golem to do menial tasks, maybe even boast about him. And it isn't until he starts acting out that Loew realizes the consequences of his creation, especially when it starts to affect his daughter. Now, real quick, I just want to talk about the history of this movie's production, because this is what I find interesting. This version is The Golem, How He Came Into the World from 1920, is actually the third movie in a trilogy that were all directed by Paul Wegener, and who also starred as the Golem in all of them. Paul Wegener was an actor who was actually on the set of a movie, The Student of Prague, when he first heard about the legend of the Golem, and it caught his imagination. So he teamed up with a writer, Heinrich Galin, and the two wrote the first Golem movie in 1915. That movie is now lost. They also made a sequel called The Golem and the Dancing Girl in 1917, which talked about Paul Wegener playing himself as he puts on all the Golem makeup so that he can ask out a girl and to impress a fan. That movie is also 100% lost. Because Wegener wasn't satisfied with the 1915 movie, him and Galin teamed up again to kind of remake it, but also talk about the origin of the Golem. And that's why we have the 1920 The Golem, How He Came Into the World, which is a prequel also to the other two movies. Again, they're lost, so it's not like we can really tell. Another little bit of trivia I found was that Heinrich Galin would go on to write the screenplay for F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu in 1922. And also, this movie, The Golem, was photographed by Karl Fraun, who would also work with F.W. Murnau in The Last Laugh in 1924, as well as Fritz Lang's Metropolis in 1927, and Todd Browning's Dracula in 1931. And it was because of his work on Dracula that Universal was so proud of, or surprised by, that they actually offered him his first directing job, which was The Mummy in 1932, I could go on and on for hours, but the reason I made this video was just to celebrate the Golem because it is now 100 years old. And it's one of my favorite movies. It's public domain. You can find it anywhere online for free. And I couldn't recommend it enough. The Golem, How He Came into the World from 1920.